Joining us now, she's the new head coach at North Carolina State after a long time assistant at LSU. Of course, was a standout player in Northwestern State, among other things. This has been long overdue, honestly. First time on the in the circle show, surprisingly. Maybe that's my booking failures there, but I'm happy to have her on now. Coach Lindsay Leftwich joining us here on In the Circle. Coach, how you doing?
We're doing great. We're doing great down here in Raleigh.
This is exciting to have you on because I feel like we've known each other forever, but yet this is like there'll be our longest conversation we've had. So I'm excited about this. But my first question is obviously, how are things going in Raleigh? How has the adjustment been going for you now as you're entering here in the fall ball and you're learning your roster and they're learning you?
It's been awesome. The kids have come out with great enthusiasm. It's definitely the honeymoon period. Everyone loves everyone right now, which is so cool though, because like in these spaces, like they want to learn and they want to try whatever you want them to try, and they're willing to like really like take some risks to see if they'll be good at things or not. And that's been so like just inspiring and exciting for like what's to come for the future that I see so many good things.
What was it about North Carolina State that you felt this was the right job for you to be a head coach? Because your name's always been floated for jobs over the years, and people wondered if you wanted to be a head coach. What was it about NC State that was the one that you said, this is the one I want to make the jump for?
It was gonna take a lot to get me to leave, right? Like, Baton Rouge was my family. Those people like, I worked for Beth for 16 years of my life, like my whole adult life pretty much. And so it had to be the right fit across the board. And like, I came here and did the interview and like sat with the people and the administration and like just heard them say the things to me that they wanted from this program, and instantly I was kind of like, oh, okay, I could do that. Like, because you have this idea in your head of what a head coach is supposed to be. And for the longest time, I never thought that was me. Like, I was a really good assistant for a reason, right? Like, I served well, I loved well. I didn't need the numbers next to my name, I didn't need the credit ever, And so I came here and sat down with Boo and the rest of the administration. They were like, listen, we know you're going to be great at the softball. We're not worried about that. Like, we know that that's why you've been so successful where you were. They're like, but honestly, you're here because we need you to do what you do best. And we've heard what you do best is you love people well and you grow them and you take care of them and you invest in them. And like that was the first time I've ever sat in a head coaching interview. In all the interviews that I've done, and somebody said, like, we want the best of you, like the what you're best at. And that was so cool. And it was almost like I got on the plane and I was almost mad. Like, I was like, son of a gun, that means I have to do this. It was like that. It was that big stretch of like, you have to get out of your comfort zone, because I sat in that room and they asked for the best of me. And I was like, okay, God, I hear you. Like, I see what you're doing here. And I was like kind of mad about it because I was like, I think I have to say yes to this. And then I went home and I sat with Beth for 2 full days, and we cried and we laughed and like we talked about what the future could look like. And she was so great about not trying to hold me back, but wanting me to do what she felt was best, what I felt was best for me. And at the same time, like, just encourage me to that she would support me in all the spaces, which was super comforting and hard and everything at the same time. But then the moment I said yes, I was like, okay, like we're doing this. Like, I'm so thankful for my time in Baton Rouge, but like we're going forward. And I'm so excited now, not to put my name on it or my stamp on it, but to do it with my staff and this group that I've created, and just to like walk alongside each other and really say like, okay, like this is what NC State can be. And this vision that's going on around here. Women's athletics are growing here like crazy. Women's basketball has won 3 ACC championships in the last 4 years. Like, cross country, tennis, all of them have been in the national championships. Like, they're investing in women's athletics here. And like, if I was going to leave a place like LSU, it was going to only be to a place that was trying to do it at the same level. And I feel like that's happening here. And I don't know. It was just like, it was finally the right moment of like everything clicking and being like, okay, like you can be great there.
Oh wait, good place to be in Raleigh, North Carolina too. Not
Yeah.
it's not.
It's unreal. Like, there's all you can throw all the stats out there. It's the number 2 place to live in the country right now. It's the number 1 place for women under the age of 25 to get jobs. Like, it's like they're saying something crazy. Like, there's like 2,000 people a month that are moving to Raleigh because of just what's growing here. Apple's coming, Google, Amazon's here. Esports is about to build like this place that's only going to make Fortnite. Like, I don't know. Like, there's this like bustling, like young growth that's happening in Raleigh, and it's like you see it happening everywhere and it makes you want to be a part of it.
So once you said yes and you got the job and you met with the players, what was the message you gave to the players?
Um, I mean, my message was like, softball is what it is, right? Like softball is supposed to be a game and it's supposed to be fun. And they had been through this really hard thing. And maybe some of their responses or some of what came out of this really hard thing wasn't something that they wanted and it wasn't who they were. And I was like, whatever we're going to be from this moment on is your choice. Like you can choose that we attack this thing differently, or you can choose to still hold on to everything that happened in the past. And we just talked about how if you want something that you've never had before, you have to be willing to do some things that you've never done. And so things were going to be harder. We were going to condition more. We were going to lift more. We were going to, we were going to do things differently than they had done before. And I was pretty much like, if that's what you want, then let's get on board and go. And if it's not what you want, then I need you to not be here because it's not, we're like, from this moment on, we're never talking about what happened before us. Like we're moving forward. And we sat down right away and kind of talked about how like the culture of things needed to change, not because of what was here before was bad, but because where we were headed and where we wanted to go, it was the only thing that could happen. The standard had to be raised and then everyone had to rise up to that standard. And everyone was pumped and on board. And I think one of the coolest things that it says about it is like I got the job and no one went in the portal, like out of the entire team. And so, like, that's such a huge thing. Like, one, it shows me that they love Raleigh and they love NC State and they want to be a part of this place. And two, they're willing to do new things and they're willing to do hard things. And I think it says a lot about who this group is and in turn who they can be.
You mentioned why the administration wanted you here and what you could bring to the program. As you get to know these players as people, what's the key to that in getting them to trust you and tell them, hey, I care about you, I believe in you, even though you inherited them?
Yeah, I think I said that right away. Like everyone talks to you and they're like, "Oh, when you get your players or your recruits or whatever." And I was like, "No, I'm like this is my team. Like I have to coach the team that I have." And I've said that to them many times, our current players. I'm like, I'm going to love you through all of this. When it's hard, we're going to figure it out. Like we're doing this together. And in turn, obviously it's going to take them a minute to trust us, but we've been around in all sorts of spaces where maybe staffs previously that were here weren't around. Like like we've been at every lift, we've been at every conditioning session. We're trying to grow them in ways that they've never been like stretched or grown before. And I think just like our presence has really helped. And then in turn, like we just with the current players, it's just like you can be whatever you want. And the outcome of this is not the goal, right? Like yes, I want to win the ACC championship and I want to be playing in June and I want to do all those things, but like the goal here is like we're going to stack good day after good day after good day, and by stacking those good days you're going to get what you want. And so like them understanding the process of like how this thing should work, and that like I have to win every moment and in turn I can win every day, and there's no bad days, there's just bad moments. I think that's been like the biggest change for them, is because like before, like they would have this big bad moment or they would struggle through practice in one day because it was hard, and then they would walk out of practice feeling like terrible people. And I'm like, that's not the point of this whole thing. This point is it's a game and it's supposed to be fun, and it's helping prepare you for so many great life things. So you've got to focus on like what's happening right now, like what's important now. We're going to win this moment. And that's been like this big culture shift of just trying to say like the process matters more than everything else. And it's just not a way that their brains have had thought here before.
It sounds like, because it's early here in the fall as we talk. So I don't want. I'm not going to ask you a ton about the roster because you're still learning the
Yeah.
roster, and that's still times away to develop. But it sounds like to me, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, that you're learning stuff already about this group as we talk. Is that accurate? That you're learning things about them that's going to help you, kind of figure this team out later in the year.
100%. Like so much of what we've done, sure, we've been learning things about their athletic skill and about what kind of like can you hit rise and can you hit drop. We've been learning those things and taking those notes. But more than that, we've been learning a lot about like their resiliency and their willingness to push through hard things. And we ran the stairs this morning at 7, and and today was the hardest day of the stairs we've had yet in Reynolds. And like you watch kids like want to quit and then like somebody come behind them and be like, no, let's go, you know? And so like you're kind of seeing who leads and who follows, but then in turn, like who's willing to just encourage along the way and who might need a little more help. And so that lets us know, like, okay, when something gets hard for her, like I need to just walk alongside her and help push her, put my hand on her shoulder and like help lead her through stuff. Like, or this one might need, like, maybe needs to be yelled at. Like she needs to be like encouraged with like some energy and some juice. And so those moments have been really interesting for us and the staff, just kind of like trying to find who they are as people and what pushes them forward.
When you looked at this roster, did you watch tape from them from the past, or did you just say, I just want a clean slate? I'm going to just evaluate based on what I see?
Well, it was good for me. They came to Baton Rouge last year and
Right.
they played us twice. So like I knew a lot about them individually, like some of their swings. We knew some stuff about the pitching staff, so that was cool. And then um Coach Bosch and Paige Cassidy, they both sat down. Like Bosch kind of looked at the team as a whole. It was kind of like ideally, like this is kind of where we are on elevated pitches. This is kind of where we are on speed or off speed pitches. And Paige kind of looked at the pitching staff and was like, okay, like we maybe need to throw drop more, or we need to like elevate less in this space. Like so, we had an idea, and then from there we tried to just kind of go clean slate. Like we tried to say like this is what we see in you and this is what we know that you are. We did some movement testing right off the bat, some on base you and functional movement stuff to kind of try find out how they move, because then I could like we could coach them differently and we could coach them more based on what they do well, instead of trying to just force them into a position that maybe they can't get into because their bodies don't work that way. So we kind of tried to like clean slate it, and then at the same time like say, okay, like how does your body work? Okay, now we're going to coach you from there.
You mentioned your coaching staff. I'm curious, once you knew you were going to take this job and be a head coach, just take me through your mindset as far as building a staff,
Yeah.
you know, in that process.
Before I ever even went on the interview, I called Paige, and Paige played for us, for Beth and I at FIU. And out of all the pitching people that have come from our program at LSU, I think Paige is the most like Beth. From a philosophy standpoint, from a personality standpoint, from a way she approaches things, she's super type A and driven. She's really good at scheduling and like making sure like things are always happening like that. And that's just like Beth. And so for me, that was so comforting to think like, okay, if I do this, I can do it with someone who is just like someone that I've been with for a really long time. Like, you know, like Riker is doing great things and Lance is doing great things at Alabama, MB and Ali Waljasper, all of these people are growing in these spots, but they all have their own like vision and personality too. While Paige still has her own vision and personality, she is driven and hardcore just like the boss was. And so that made me feel really good. So I called her. I'm like, I'm doing this. I think this is a really good thing. Do you want to come with me? And she was like, yes, absolutely. In Paige's, she started the program at Liberty. She was there for 9 years with Dot. And in those 9 years, she had the pitcher of the year in the conference like 5 times. So obviously she's really good at what she does. And then most recently she was at Texas Tech. And so again, she was in a space there where like she took over a program with Craig that had been through some hard things. And like, so she kind of was like ready and experienced for that. So like that made me feel really good that like when we kind of go through some of those same hard things here, those growing pains, that she's done it before, you know? And then in hiring Bosch, like gosh, like he's been at the highest level. He's been in the World Series twice. He's been at Florida doing all these things, seeing how things function. But even more than that, he was a head coach for 16 years. And that was what I instantly thought I needed. I needed someone who had sat in this seat, because one, I never really fully saw myself in this seat. So I didn't have this great vision of like, oh, I need my team to look exactly like this. And so it was really nice for him to be able to sit here and be like, okay, like when things like this happen, this is what I've seen, or this is what we've experienced. So that right off the bat, like moved him up the list. And then on top of that, I watched my friends take head jobs all across the country, and I watched all of them struggle to hire pitching people. So I just hired two. You know, I hired two of the best ones out there. But Bosch is going to oversee the defense. He's going to run all the analytics, the scouting. He's a numbers guy. Before he ever started coaching softball, he was a math professor at a university, and so he sees things differently, and he's really even in his emotional, like longevity there, whereas maybe I'm not. I have some really big highs because I get super like energized and pumped up and I'm ready to go and I'm passionate about things. And so his evenness is really helpful for us as a staff. And then I hired Grayson Radcliffe. She played at Indiana for Shonda Stanton, and anybody that comes from Shonda, has a ton of juice and energy. And Grayson is the perfect example of that. And then on top of that, she was just all the things that I think that I want my players to be. Like she was Big 12 Woman of the Year. She was all of these things that like encompass what it looks like to not only be a great player, but to be a great human. And she can kind of do all the things. She can run the off, she can do the offense, she can do the defense, she can handle the base running. So she has this spot to kind of like fill the gaps for us, which is kind of maybe what I was doing for a long time at LSU. So it was nice to hire someone who could come in and kind of like be the jack of all trades, like, hey, we have an opening that something needs to be taught over there. Grayson, go handle it. And that is like, that was what I was worried about. Like, in doing this, is like, okay, like who can do what I did and who can do it well. And the more I talked to Grayson, the more I was like, wow, that's like, she's the exact right fit, like across the board. And then Carson Shanner's our director of ops. She played here at NC State, she was the graduate assistant last year during the whole changeover. She's from like 40 minutes down the road, loves Raleigh, loves NC State, wants to be a part of this place. And so it was a really easy decision for me to want to keep her because while we were on the road recruiting the whole summer and none of us lived here, like Carson just could keep things level and knew how things went. And then to have someone here that like understands like how everything within the NC State athletics works, that makes our transition so much easier because she can help us kind of guide through what red tape we need to try and like go through hard and what we need to avoid. And so she was a really easy decision in the fact that like she loves this place and we needed someone to tell us why this place was great as we start recruiting, as we start doing those things. Like what's the best sell about Raleigh? Like what am I calling up some recruit on September 1st and what am I saying, like this is why you should be here? And like Carson's lived that firsthand, and so that was really cool for us.
It sounds to me that you like to delegate, that's going to be part of your style as a coach. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I've tried to be really good at that. I definitely like to teach and I like to have my hands in things, and I think the skills is what I'm really good at. Like I'm really good at teaching the fundamentals of things. And so I get to be in a space here now where I have people that do things, a lot of them better than me. Like they've done other things than I've done. Like I had a really good job at LSU. Like I handled the recruiting and I taught the skills, and I got to do all sorts of other random things in between, but like I was great at those things. So now I can be here and I can still be great at those things while I let these other people be great at what they're good at. I don't need the numbers next to my name and I don't need the credit. Like that's by far, that's like the furthest thing from what I am. And so in turn, I want to walk alongside these people and say, okay, you're great at this, then run with it and be great at it. And sure, I'm in charge of all the things. I oversee all the things, but just check back in with me and be like, Linz, this is where we're headed to this. Is this cool? And I'll be like, yeah, let's go. And so in the delegation of it, I thought that it was going to be hard for me, but to watch these people do what they do best, it's so easy just to be like, I don't need to touch that. Like you're great at it. Go.
What got Lindsay Leftwich into softball?
I wanted nothing to do with coaching. I was out. I went to Northwestern State in Natchitoches, Louisiana. I had 4 head coaches in 5 years and 13 assistants. So, like, plus I tore a rotator cuff and a labrum. I had a PCL surgery on my knee, and I didn't play my last year of college softball because I had 3 ruptured discs in my lower back. So college was hard. Like the whole space of college was hard. Everyone was like, "Oh, you should coach." I'm like, "No, I want nothing to do with this. I want out of coaching. I want out of softball." And when I got hurt my senior season, our FCA director, the Fellowship of Christian Athletes, her name was Rose Long, and she just kind of walked alongside me and kind of grabbed me by my face mask and was like, "Linz, like you were made for this." And I was like, "No, I'm like not doing this." Like put my foot down, like was like absolutely not. And when I got hurt my senior season, and Mike Pernicero was the head coach at the time, he let me stay on as the student assistant, and I like fell in love with it. Like I fell in love with watching people like learn and be great at things. I fell in love with watching them grow through something hard. Like, and I was like, okay, fine, you're right, I'll do it. Like, and I kind of just ran from there. I was the pitching coach my first year out of school at Wichita State. That was a crazy move. The pitchers are crazy. Let's leave them in their circle to the people that have done it. I did that for a year. And then I went to the University of Missouri for 31 days as the director of ops, the graduate assistant, and Ty Singleton took the head job at the University of New Mexico. So I packed everything I owned and moved to New Mexico. Was getting my master's in counseling. Still had the back of my head. I was like, I don't know if I want to coach all the way. Maybe I want to go work for FCA. I want to work for Kanakuk. I want to do something like that. And then Beth Torina called me 9 months into me being at the University of Mexico, was like, hey, do you want to come run my offense? And I'm like, yes. And she's like, wait a second. I can only pay you like $24,000 to live in Miami. You have to move all the way across the country. You can't finish your master's degree. Are you sure you want to come? And I was like, I get to work for you. Yes, I want to come. So I sold everything I owned. I put it in my car and I moved to Miami. And I had coached with Beth ever since. Um,
That's pretty good. That's pretty good.
yeah.
Now, when you were in Wichita, that was right after Tim Walton had just
Yep.
left to be the Florida head coach, correct?
Yeah, Tim left and went to Florida, and then I went with Mike Perticero. Pooch was our my head coach my fifth year, my senior season, and then he took me with him there to Wichita State in that space.
How did you know Beth? You mentioned when she just called you to offer you the offer, but how did
Yeah,
you know her? How did she know you?
I met Beth through it's actually because of Pooch. He when he said, "Hey, I want you to be my pitching coach," he's like, "I have this really good friend that coaches at the University of Houston. My family lives in Houston." He was like, "Go home for the summer. Everything that Beth does, you do. Every camp, every lesson, every whatever." So I like literally just sat in her back pocket for a whole summer and worked camps and did all the things with her. Went to Wichita State, and then before I ended up going to Missouri, I worked camp for her again that summer. So I'd worked camp for her 2 years in a row. And then when she got ready to take the FIU job, like luckily I made a great impression and she hired me. I try and tell my players that all the time. I'm like, listen, when you're working camps with these other people, like people are evaluating who you are in those moments and your work ethic and all the things. I was like, I literally have a job because I worked the camp, and because I worked it well and I represented myself and what I knew well. And so yeah, so I worked two camps those summers for her, and obviously, like we communicated throughout the time when I was running the pitching because she's obviously great at what she does. And then so she took the FIU job and hired me, and yeah, and I was with her for 16 years after that.
Which is kind of remarkable in
Yeah,
this industry, right? Like, I don't think you would have imagined when you moved down to Miami, oh, I'm going to be spending 16 years of my next of life with this person and
yep,
working for her.
100%. Yeah, last night was her youngest daughter's 8th birthday, and it's, like, the first birthday I've missed, like, of her kids, and so, like, I FaceTimed her to say hi or whatever, and, like, I hung up the phone and I was kinda like, I was sad for a minute, like, because those were my people, but I everyone keeps reminding me that, like, it's not subtraction, it's addition. Like, now I get to add new people, and I get to, like, just grow my family so much more, and I just have to be super diligent about making sure that, I call the kids when I need to call them or hang out for Thanksgiving or do all the things.
So you're, and I want to bring up FIU because that's something I always try to bring up about Beth because people kind of forget that since she's been at
Yeah.
LSU a long time. I've known Beth since she was the assistant at Houston.
Yeah.
And I unfortunately was broadcast UCF softball. I've done it now for 18 seasons, so I saw it firsthand when FIU got to their first ever regional final in Gainesville in 2010. You beat UCF on the way there to get there before losing to Florida. Considering FIU's budget, not the best. You kind of described it, what they were paying coaches there. Describe that time at FIU because Paige, you mentioned, was a part of that.
Yeah. FIU was honestly, like, it was all I ever knew. Like, I came from a mid-major. I came from a small mid-major with, like, nothing. We ate peanut butter and jelly for dinner back in the day, and so, like, walking into that space was so easy. Like, yeah, we had these big, huge, hard challenges. Like, our cages were outside with dirt floors, and it rained every day at 2 o'clock. Like, our outfield fence didn't have gates to, like, close the fence in. It was just open. And, like, we had a fence and there was nothing. Like, you had all these things that were, like, hard. But then at the same time, we had these kids on this team. They were we had, I don't know, we were probably, if you looked at our team of 20, we probably had 16 kids, 15 kids from Miami. And so we had these kids who were like grew up like from nothing. We had two sisters on the team that were first generation Americans, and like their parents only spoke Spanish. And it was just this time of these players that like were gritty and tough. They never left the field. They wanted to be all the things because like playing softball was like the easiest part of their life. It was like the easiest part of their day for a lot of them, because we had these players who literally, like, they would ask for a glove for Christmas, and it would be the only Christmas present they would get, because that's how much they like loved softball. We had just a ton of these little Cuban kids that were just unbelievably tough and hard nosed. And that like changed my perspective of what like grit is in a player moving forward for the rest of my career. Paige was started at Presbyterian, and then she transferred to play for us at FIU. She actually used to take pitching lessons from Beth when Beth was coaching at Stetson back in the day. So that's kind of like how that connection happened. So Paige has been throwing with Beth since she was like 11. Um, which is crazy, right? Like, and it all connects together. And so, like, our time at FIU was just this cool time of like growing. It was Beth and I, and then we had a graduate assistant. So our graduate assistant is like doing all sorts of other things. We actually took a graduate assistant that was teaching, had a full time teaching job, and then would come and be our while she was getting her master's. Her name was Jenny Owens. She played at FIU. And so that was so really on the day to day stuff. It was Beth and I, like just trying to figure it out and do it all. And so you're the director of ops and the manager and all the things at the same time. And so it really like shaped who I was going to be as a coach, and like that I wasn't afraid to put my nose down and do the work. And living in Miami was so fun. Like, it was pre her having kids, and so we just did all of these things all the time. Like we were at the beach, or we were at a ball game, or we were doing whatever. And so it like just shaped our relationship, and then our ability to then coach our teams with, passion and energy and whatever, because we knew each other so well in those spaces. And I don't know, those kids were different and they were fun. And we still talk to a ton of them still to this day.
Incredible. And then you both end up going to LSU. She gets the head coaching job and she brings you with her. Was that ever like take me through that when she got the LSU job? Was there a part of you that's like, oh no, like,
She made
uh,
she made me interview for the FIU job, like, and I
ooh,
was so mad. I was like, "No." I was like, "I don't wanna be the head coach, and I really don't wanna be the coach after you leaving, because 'cause I'm nothing like you." I was like, "I don't know, don't make me," is pretty much, and she was like, "No, you're interviewing for the head job. You should do this if you get it." And I'm like, "I don't want this." And so that was a small place of contention for the we she worked at LSU and I worked at FIU for about a month. Because like through the whole interview process. So FIU kept me on staff just to keep recruiting and doing all the things as they were interviewing all the people. So we went to Colorado that summer to go recruiting, and we shared a room, and we got up the first morning and she put on purple and I put on blue. And I was like, "Ugh, I hate this." Like I was like, like no. And so it turned out they did not pick me. Luckily, they picked somebody who was had previously been a head coach, so that was what they thought would be the best fit. And then like a month later, she hired me, and I packed everything I owned again and drove to Baton Rouge, and the rest was history.
but that's interesting though. She kept the spot open in
Yeah,
case you didn't get the job. So she wanted you to interview the job, but she also had a she's smart. She's thinking two steps ahead there.
yeah, yeah. I'm grateful. I'm grateful for the way she taught me, the way she loved me. I'm grateful for the fact that she gave me a chance to do things my way, to like really develop who I was going to be as a coach. Like running that offense, my our first year at FIU, I had no idea what I was doing. Like I had this idea of what I thought an offense should look like, but I still didn't really know. Like I was so young in my coaching career. I had been a pitching coach and a director of operations. That's what I had done. And and she just trusted me. And so I'm so grateful for the time that I spent with her. And I don't know. I don't know how there's gonna be parts during this year where I'm gonna be like, I don't know what I'm doing, and it's just gonna go straight back to what we were doing 16 years ago. And I'm excited for all of those moments too.
I was gonna say you're now part of the Torina tree,
Yeah.
coaching
Yeah.
tree. I've talked to her about it on many a times where people are reaching out to her all the time for advice across the sport. What are some of the things that you picked up from her from all this time you spent with her? No coach has spent more time with her than you.
Yeah.
What things did you pick up that you're going to apply to here as a head coach?
I think you always knew what you're getting from her every day. Like she walks in the office and is the same. And we could have gotten in a knockdown and drag out the day before over how we were taking outfield cuts, right? Like and like I was right and she was right and whatever. But then we were going to walk in the office the next day, and it didn't matter. She still loved you and still cared about you. She was just so even in those spaces, and that to me was what made it so easy to work for her for so long. Is like you always knew what you were getting. like you always knew the kind of person she was going to come to practice as, and you always knew that like the moment she had an issue with something, we were going to talk about it and we were going to communicate our way through it. And whether it was with somebody on the staff or a player on the team or whatever it was, like we were going to the source right then and we were taking care of it. And that to me, like in running a program, made it so easy to see like we're going to take care of this and we're going to move on, and nothing was ever just going to like hang on for long periods of time. And it made it really easy for the team to be honest and open in what they were going through also, because they could come to us and say, hey coach, this happened and I probably shouldn't have done it and I don't know what to do about it. Where do we go from there? And then that honesty and integrity right from the jump, like let us handle stuff and let us get ahead of stuff and let us like continue to like love and grow and shape them into the women they were trying to become. And I think that that is like the number one thing that I want to come to work every day the same. And things are going to be hard. And coaching in the SEC, especially being a head coach in the SEC, like I know that she went through some things that were really hard, and the expectations of that place are hard. And so I think that like that is like walking away from that and doing this thing myself is like how you come to work every day matters. And like the way that we choose to move forward matters. So that right off the jump is something that I want to do just like her. And then, like I think as a group, as a whole, she always says like I want people to come watch us play and I want them to walk away from here and say my team plays freaking hard. Like that team played hard. We might have not won, but they walk away thinking like, holy cow, LSU plays hard. I want the same thing. Like I don't want them to ever walk out of here and question like the way that we attack every pitch and the way that we go after things. Like if somebody walks in the seventh inning, I want them to not know if we're winning or losing based on what we look like in the dugout and our body language and all of those things. And I think that's something that was always like her main like thing that she was going to stand on. And I don't see how I can move forward without that.
We're speaking with NC State head coach Lindsay Leftwich here on In the Circle. What's your favorite moment you'll take with you from your time in Baton Rouge?
Oh my gosh, there's so many great ones. Um, I think it's crazy too. I have tons of favorite moments, but one of my very favorite is our very first year in 2012. Our offense was not very good. Our like we were struggling to like find some things, but we could really freaking pitch. And we had Rachel Fico and Brittany Mack on the mound, and somehow we end up in a regional at Texas. It was before Texas A&M and Missouri were in the league, and that summer they were coming to the league the next year. So we got Texas A&M and Missouri in the regional and the super regional. Like we just got to welcome them to the SEC in that space. And it was so cool to watch our team figure out like, holy crap, we're so much better than everyone's giving us credit for. Like they like literally willed themselves to the World Series that year. Like we went to the World Series with like 14 home runs and we were batting 212. Like there's no reason we should have been in the World Series, right? But we figured it out. But we figured it out because we had kids on the team like Katie Guillory, who now is the strength coach at LSU, and Heidi Pizer, and then those two pitchers. And like we had people that just like said, hey, we're doing this and there's no stopping us. And that was one of my favorite moments because it was like the epitome of what the culture is like at LSU. It's like it's gritty and it's tough and it's like these people that like survive everything. Like they're going to survive every hurricane. They're going to and get better. And so we had these two Louisiana kids who didn't play at all, but yet somehow were the reason outside of the pitching staff that we like made it to the World Series, and like that's one of my favorite memories is that like your team can encompass so many things without having to like you don't have to be hitting 300 with 80 jacks. Like you can do so many things if you create this culture of fight and grit and like just like drive. And that to this day is one of my favorite moments that we roll in and play Texas A&M and we put them out. We roll in and play 3 games against Missouri, who was so much better than us, and put them out, and we end up in the World Series our first year there. And it was just such a great reminder that like like your heart matters so much more than some of the other things sometimes.
Yeah, that was a wild time there with Fico and Mac. You're right. That was an incredible time. One of many trips you've done to Oklahoma City on the trip. Now, I ask everybody that's been in the Torina tree this question, and I always premise this because every time I talk to Beth's like, why do you have to bring that up? And I'm like, because it's a fascinating story. And of course, I speak of her superstition. How much? How much of that is that? How much did
I'm
she stuck you into that?
We're the same. She's bad at that because I was bad at that. Like that started way back at FIU. Like we are the same. And like if I'm sitting on this chair and we're scoring runs, then I'm sitting on the chair. If the shortstop's in the bathroom and we hit 2 home runs, the shortstop needs to go back in the bathroom. Like I'm the same. Now maybe I might like I'm not going to use the exact same pen every game, but I'm still going to do some of those things. I think that like her superstition is probably just as bad because I made it worse if I would have to guess.
So you're partially to blame to some
Yeah,
extent.
I
Okay.
100% because I just enabled it. I never shut it down for the last 16 years. So we're if you're starting the game and if you need to finish the game in a jacket, then you're starting the game in a jacket.
Yeah.
Like unless we need to score a lot of runs, then take the jacket off. Like whatever it is. I'm the exact same as that.
I'm not judging either. I'm the same way. So that's what I always tell her. Like, I'm not judging. I'm on your side on this. This is very
Once the
important.
once the game begins, there's nothing that we can do to like control the outcome very much. So if me changing my jacket in the seventh inning when we need to score some runs changes something, then I'm here for it.
So what's the one superstition that stands out you have? Is there one in particular you have there that is consistent, that you've had it all this time, that where people now in Raleigh are going to notice?
Oh, well, I don't know if the people in Raleigh are gonna notice, but I think my team will know right away. When we really need to score runs, I always say that we have to let the hits out. So the way that you let the hits out is by like unzipping like every zipper or pocket that you have. So like one year we're at the World Series in 2017 and we needed to score. We were playing Michigan and Holly Rowe was doing the game and she's sitting in the camera well behind. I walked over to Holly, I'm like, Holly, you have to let the hits out. And she was like, I have to let what out? Like she questioned what I said for a minute. I'm like, you have to let some hits out. I need you to unzip your jacket. And she was like, oh. And Holly's just like, and instantly unzips her jacket. She was on board and in for it. So I think that that's probably my biggest one is that like you gotta call in the softball gods every now and then.
All right, that's not bad. That's pretty good because she said Beth's got some crazy ones. Like,
Yeah,
like I think Shelby Sinceri told me about the one time in the bullpen where she literally accidentally dumped a coffee on her notes, but they pitched so well that she kept doing that for a little
yeah,
while. Okay.
100%.
Yeah. All right. That's good. I'm the same way again. I'm the same way. Like I have to sit in a certain spot for a broadcast. It's just so we're all the same. I don't know
Yeah,
why, but we're all in the same boat on that. Uh, when you
it's
took this, but that's just the way we are.
yeah.
I love that. But now we know you're an enabler. You're part. She. I give her credit. She never mentioned you as part of the problem. So
I'm an
that's
enab-
great.
I'm 100% an enabler.
That's incredible. I love that. Uh, when you took this job, you obviously told her that had to be. Was that emotional? Was that difficult? Considering, I mean, you two are family. How
Yeah,
difficult was that? The hardest part of this whole process, in a way.
I I cried for like 2 days. So did she. Like it was like I I never thought that moment would happen. I don't know. I mean, I guess in my brain I thought it would work for her for my whole career. So I never thought that that space would happen. And so like I told her I was going to do it and I called my dad and I went outside and I called the administration. I was at her house. So I went out to the backyard and I called her my administration and told her I was going to take the job and I came back in. I'm like crying and she's like, "You're supposed to be happy. Like why are you crying?" And I'm so excited, but I'm so sad. Like just cuz I knew what was coming. So gosh, I'm going to tear up now. But I'm so excited about this journey. But yeah, I'm going to miss my people too.
Yeah, no, that's totally understandable. With the great history and trend, you two have had, but you get to call her now all the time and
Yeah.
bug her still. So I mean,
Yeah.
that's the beauty of
I get to call her and be like, "Wait, how do I do this?"
it. Oh man, that's too good. You mentioned head coach never crossed your mind. That never crossed your mind during all this time, because like I mentioned earlier, your name had been popped up for other jobs before,
I
but
just
never crossed.
it never been the right fit. Like I turned down the job at UNLV a few years back when they hired Christy Fox, which was a great hire. Christy's been incredible there. Um and then I was a finalist at Maryland and at Penn State. Those were the jobs that like I actually like sought out and like after they called me and went and interviewed. And then all the other jobs I when they would call, I would just tell them no because I wasn't interested. But just nothing ever felt right. Nothing ever felt like the right fit. And as much as everyone talks about like, oh, it's a power five, it's this, it's that, like not all power fives are created equal. Not all administrations are created equal. Not all cities are created equal in this. I I don't know, I didn't want to live in Happy Valley. Like I didn't, there's something to be said about where you get to spend your life and what you get to do. And if I was going to leave my family, I wanted to go someplace where like I felt like I could grow and I could do all these cool things that I want to do. Like I love to fish and I like camping and I like all that stuff. And I can drive 2 hours from Raleigh and be in the mountains, and I can drive 2 hours the other direction and be on the beach. Like the location of this place is unreal. It's incredible. And so just the opportunity to like make a life decision was really cool. And then like I said, the administration made it so clear that they are on board, that they're on board for wherever we're headed. And that's been so apparent from the start. Like I walked in the door and I thought that we needed to do some things right away down in the cage, or we needed some stuff that maybe wasn't in the budget line. And the athletic director was like, call the Wolfpack Club, which is our fundraising arm, like tell them what you need and we'll make it happen. And like instantly, like I like walked in the door and I bought a $14,000 spin ball pitching machine. And I did something else and I bought two new turtles. And I just did some things that I thought would help us function more efficiently right off the bat. And the administration was like, do what you need. Like we're behind you and we know that you're going to make some good decisions that are going to help us win. Go. And that doesn't happen everywhere. And so that was like this place just felt different from the start, which made it was still hard to leave my space and to leave my family, but it made it so easy to say I can do that there because I can win.
It reminds me because I've talked to a lot of the ACC coaches. They've said similar things where everybody's kind of raised the level. I'm talking about all the schools in the
Yeah,
ACC to try to be a top softball conference. Does it remind you a little bit too when you arrived at LSU? Because that was right around the time where the SEC started to explode in
100%.
softball with the support. It feels the same we're heading that with the ACC there.
Yeah, 100%. They like Florida State doing what they're doing right now and being great is great for all of us, right? Like the rising tide raises all boats. And so they're showing that with a little bit of love from the administration, from some fundraising arms, from like you going out and fighting for some things, like you can put yourself on the map and you can do it. It doesn't have to be all shiny and sparkle and pretty all the time, but you can do it with some people that get behind you right away. And you're seeing that across the board. Like Duke's facility is beautiful. Virginia Tech and Virginia have both made great improvements. Like I think there's things happening all around the ACC that like this is the place to be from a conference perspective, especially if you're a student athlete who's trying to major in any sort of like science, technology, engineering, math, like come on to the ACC because we do those things really, really well here.
And I've heard talent level in the Carolina area very underrated. And that's it's not an accident that a lot of programs in that region are having success.
I agree 100%. I think the other thing is that no one realizes like how mild the weather is. Like even when I took the job, I'm like, great, it's gonna snow. Oh my God, what did I do? And everyone's like, dude, it hasn't snowed in like 6 years. And I'm like, oh, okay, great. They're like, you're gonna be. It gets a little chilly there in some spots. They're like, but like you're gonna spend Thanksgiving in like short sleeves. And I'm like, oh, okay, I feel much better about this decision now. So I think the weather adds to that too. Like it allows people to play outside for a really long time and like you can continue to grow in some of those spaces. And then our ability to like touch Georgia and Virginia and some of those spaces and pull some kids from those spots too has been awesome. The Carolinas is seems like a great spot for like softball to keep growing in.
The NFCA just announced their opening weekend for
Yeah.
the leadoff classic. I saw NC State's there.
Yeah, we're making a trip to the Leadoff Classic down in Clearwater. We just got our schedule. We play Missouri and Iowa on day one, so that'll be great right out of the box. Luckily, Paige was in the Big 12, so she knows a lot about Iowa, and Mike and I know enough about Mizzou that we should feel pretty confident there. And then we play Missouri State and Western Kentucky on day two, and then we close with St. John's. So it's gonna be a fun weekend. I'm excited.
But yeah, I was gonna say, do you have an idea what are you gonna be feeling that first day when you're at Eddie C. Moore? Like, what are the emotions gonna be like for you in this new role for you? Something
Yeah,
different.
I don't know if I'm gonna like. Am I gonna like jog it out to third base, or am I gonna want to walk to first base? I don't know. Like,
Oh, that's a good point.
like it's like what that's gonna feel like. I think it's gonna be cool, and it's gonna be, like I hope that I have some nerves, because if I have some nerves, it means I'm in the right space, right? Like it means that I'm challenging myself, and I'm trying to grow and stretch myself in the right spot. And I think I'm going to be nervous, but I think that my excitement level and my confidence, hopefully, in how we've prepared the team, will help calm those nerves, and we'll get to kind of roll straight from there.
And my last question for you, you got a lot of work between now and then with the group and all that. What are some of the keys for this group that you want to accomplish between now and by the time you get to Clearwater there in NEC Moore? And more specifically for Wolfpack fans, what do you want them to see on the field once you get to February and beyond?
Yeah, I think we need to steal more bases. I think we need to run more. I think we need to stretch more doubles, instead of like just trying to lift all the time, which is I think in the ACC our parks play a little smaller. About half of the ACC, the parks are a little smaller. So I think like I don't have to try and sit and lift to get a ball out of the yard. I can hit things a little flatter and like really just try and find really quality barrels all the time. I think that they will hopefully notice that about us right away. I want a base run like their base run at Indiana. Heck, I'm gonna let Grayson Radcliffe run with that, and like we're take our personnel and make us the best spot, like put us in the best spot to be successful right there. We're playing a little more defense here than they ever have in the past, so I think hopefully, like people notice that right away, that like doing that well is really important to us. I think you only have to have two of the three every day to win, right? We have to play great defense and pitch great, and we can win. We have to hit that day and pitch great, and we can win. Like we have two of the three, we put ourselves in a really good chance to like take off. And then the things Paige is going to do with the pitching is going to be phenomenal. We have some kids on the mound that are very talented. We have two kids that throw 70 plus. We have a couple of down ball kids, and then like we're doing some other things in those spots. So I think like allowing them to pitch like in a very confident, like prepared space is something that they haven't felt here in a little while. They've had some changeover in the pitching staff role, from the pitching coach perspective. And so I think like just the consistency of Paige's words and her love and investment will propel them forward. I don't know. I just think that people will notice that we're going to play with a lot more juice than maybe they have in the past. And I'm excited about that because that's what I want my team to be. I want people to walk away and just be like, "Holy cow, they have some energy."
That's going to be a pretty exciting time for the Wolfpack fans, and everybody will get going. Fall ball obviously going on right now, but then of course it gets going for real in February in Clearwater. Head coach Lindsay Leftwich here on In the Circle. Coach, this has been fun, long overdue, but I'm excited that you were able to join us. I know it's a busy time, but thanks for coming on and talking to us. We'll definitely do this again down the road, but in the meantime, good luck, and look forward to seeing you during the season and then following you all year round.
Cool. Thank you for having me, Eric. I appreciate it.